I sold my son's PC, his collectibles, and all his other stuff, and grounded him, believing he had stolen money from my sister. Then I found out my nephew had stolen it. I felt sorry and told my son to move on. But he still sulked and eventually abandoned me to stay with his mom. I regret how I treated my son. I 45M have a 17-year-old son, Evan. His mom and I split when he was 10, but we've always had 50-50th custody. I remarried a few years ago. No kids from that marriage. My younger sister 39F lives about 15 minutes away, a single mom to her own 16-year-old son, Kyle. My sister and I are pretty close, so we see each other often. She's also fairly close with Evan. This whole thing started about 2 months ago. One Saturday morning, my sister called me sounding pissed and upset. She said she had just gotten a PayPal notification for a $500 charge to some online gaming retailer. She swore up and down she didn't make it and immediately thought of Evan because, apparently, she'd seen him browsing gaming gear on his phone when we were over there the weekend before. I told her that was a serious accusation, but she doubled down. She said she checked her PayPal account and saw the username on the order was something like Evangemer ##, not his actual tag, but close enough to be suspicious. She told me she knew it was him because Kyle wouldn't risk doing something like that, and she had no one else it could be. I confronted Evan as soon as I hung up. He looked genuinely confused and swore he didn't do it. I asked him to show me his phone, PayPal, and bank account. He did nothing there, but he could have deleted messages or used someone else's device. The thing that really made me doubt him was that the charge was for exactly the kind of high-end gaming peripherals he's been wanting for months. When I pressed him, he got frustrated and defensive, which in my head just screamed guilt. I was convinced. My sister even sent me a screenshot of the PayPal notification, and I admit it did look bad. That night, I made the decision I'm now questioning. Evan has a massive gaming setup. We're talking a custom-built PC he saved for 2 years to buy, 2 consoles, shelves of rare gaming collectibles, limited edition figurines, and a wall-mounted monitor setup. Some of the stuff he had, like certain figures and controllers he's had since he was 12, bought with birthday and Christmas money. I went into his room while he was at school the next day and packed up everything. PC, consoles, monitors, shelves, collectibles, every game disc, even his gaming chair. I listed them all online and sold them over the next week. I got just over $14 total because some of his collectibles were worth a lot. I gave my sister the $500 she lost and told her the rest was going to be a lesson fund, meaning I'd keep it aside for Evan until I felt he'd earned back my trust. When he came home that first day and saw his room empty, I'd never seen a look like that on him before. He just froze in the doorway. Then he asked, "Where's my stuff?" I told him calmly I'd sold it, explained why, and said this was his punishment for stealing from family. He said he didn't do it, screamed that I was ruining his life, called me a effing arsehole, and stormed to his room. I'd already locked down his phone so he couldn't get online except for schoolwork, cut off his internet access, and told him he was grounded until further notice. For the next couple of weeks, he barely spoke to me. He did his school stuff, ate meals, and stayed in his room with nothing to do but read or draw. I thought he was just sulking because he got caught. My wife supported my decision, saying we couldn't let him think stealing had no real consequences. My parents, though, said I'd gone too far. They told me teenagers make mistakes, but selling years' worth of his personal possessions was overkill. I told them the real overkill was stealing from his own aunt. My dad just said, "I hope you're right about this." My sister kept saying she was glad I took it seriously, because Kyle had friends whose parents let them get away with everything. At this point, I was convinced I'd done the right thing, even if Evan hated me for a while. I figured once enough time passed, we'd talk it out, and maybe he'd admit the truth. But that's not how it went. A few weeks later is when things really started to unravel, and that's where I'm stuck wondering if I completely screwed up. It was a random Thursday night when my sister called me again, but this time she sounded weird, nervous. She said she needed to clear something up and asked if I was alone. I told her my wife was in the other room and Evan was upstairs. She blurted out that the $500 charge hadn't been Evan. Apparently, she'd gotten her monthly bank statement and noticed a few other smaller charges she didn't recognize. When she pressed Kyle about them, he admitted he'd been using her PayPal account for weeks to buy in-game stuff and accessories. He told her he had memorized her password months ago and used it without permission. When the $500 purchase came through, he panicked and told her he knew it was Evan to avoid getting caught. She believed him without even considering any other possibilities. I was silent on the phone. She kept saying she was sorry, that she never thought Kyle would lie like that, and that she would pay me back for everything. I hung up and realized my mistake. My stomach dropped. Because here's the thing, the stuff I sold. It wasn't just replaceable gaming junk. Some of it was truly one of a kind. Evan had this signed collector's edition controller from a developer event he went to with his mum when he was 13. He had rare figurines that are no longer in production, some worth hundreds each now. He had a PC he built himself from scratch, and I know how much pride he took in that. All of it gone. To strangers. Can't just go buy it back. I went upstairs to talk to him. He was reading and didn't even look up. I told him everything, word for word. That it was Kyle. That his aunt admitted it. That he had been telling the truth the whole time. He didn't react the way I expected. I thought he'd be relieved, maybe even cry. Instead, he just closed his book, looked at me, and said, "Cool. So can I have my stuff back?" I had to tell him I couldn't. That it was all sold. He laughed, not in a funny way, but in that kind of bitter, ugly laugh people do when they've just been gut punched. He asked me, "So you destroyed years of my hard work and savings because you believed them over me?" I said I thought I had good reason, that the evidence looked bad. He said, "No, you just think I'm the kind of person who would steal. And now I know it." Then he got up, went to his closet, and started packing a bag. I tried to stop him and said we could replace some things and work it out. But he just said, "I don't want your money. I don't want anything from you." He called his mum, and within an hour she was at my door. She didn't even come inside, just stood outside and said, "Get your coat, Evan." I tried to talk to her, but she said, "You had him in your house for half the time, and you still managed to make him feel like a criminal. Good job." Since that night, he's been staying with her parents, my ex's mom and dad. He hasn't answered any of my texts or calls. His mom says he's not ready to see me. My parents are furious with me. My dad called me an idiot and said I should have known better than to jump to conclusions. My mom said I should have grounded him if I suspected something, but selling all his possessions was beyond punishment. It was humiliation. I've offered to buy him a new PC, new consoles, whatever he wants, but that's not the point. The point is I didn't believe him when it mattered, and I can't undo that. Meanwhile, my sister is trying to repair things with him too, but he won't talk to her either. She grounded Kyle for 2 months and took away all his electronics. But from what I hear, it's not helping much. Evan told my ex that the only person he'll speak to right now is her dad. I feel like I completely broke my relationship with my kid. And for what? Because I wanted to look like the responsible parent who doesn't tolerate stealing. Because I wanted to prove to my sister that I'd handle it. Here's the kicker, the $4,000 from selling his stuff is still in my account. I haven't touched it. I've told Evan it's his whenever he wants it. But he just said, "Keep it. I don't want anything from you ever again." I honestly don't know how to fix this. The trust is gone. My wife keeps telling me to give him space and let time heal it. But my gut says time isn't going to be enough. I don't even know why I'm posting here. Maybe because my parents keep hinting that I owe Evan something beyond just replacing the stuff, that I owe him some kind of accountability. Maybe because I can't stop replaying the look on his face that day I told him his room was empty. So, Ada, for how I handled this. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was teaching my son a lesson about consequences. Instead, I think I taught him that I'll side with anyone else before I side with him. Comments. Comment 1. You sold years of your kid's hard work and memories because you couldn't be bothered to do the most basic parenting step. Actually investigate. You sided with your sister instantly, even when your son handed you his phone and accounts on a silver platter. Now you're shocked he doesn't trust you. Dude, you didn't teach him about consequences. You taught him that you'll destroy his life to save face. Congrats on parenting yourself into estrangement. Comment 2. You didn't just punish him. You humiliated him. Publicly. His stuff is in other people's houses now because you wanted to be the cool uncle to your sister's kid while throwing your own under the bus. Then you have the audacity to keep the 4K like it's some moral high ground fund. Bro, that's his money. You literally sold his possessions and are sitting on the profit after finding out he was innocent. That's not teaching a lesson. That's theft. Yes, theft. The thing you accused him of. Comment 3. The irony is insane. You accused your kid of stealing with zero proof, sold thousands of dollars of his property without his consent, kept the cash, and you're still holding it hostage. You are literally the thief in this story. You destroyed trust, took away irreplaceable collectibles, and then acted like offering him a Walmart replacement setup would fix it. He doesn't want your money because it's blood money from his own stuff. This isn't time heals all wounds territory. This is congrats, you just speedrun alienating your kid forever. Update. Well, I got my arse handed to me. I'll start by saying I read every single comment. I don't know why I did that to myself, because after the first 100, it was basically the same words over and over. You're a thief. You're abusive. You're the worst parent on this sub, some of which were pretty creative, I'll admit. I want to address a few things before I explain what I've done since posting. First off, yes, I was wrong. Full stop. I acted without enough evidence. I trusted my sister's word over my son's, and the evidence I thought was so convincing was flimsy at best. A lot of you pointed out that my son showing me his phone accounts was a huge green flag, and I still bulldozed through that. You're right, that was my mistake. Second, a lot of people latched onto me, keeping the 4K from selling his stuff as theft and proof that I'm no better than what I accused him of. I get how it looks. But my thinking at the time, which I still think was reasonable in the moment, was that if he had stolen, me selling his gaming gear would be a proportional consequence, and keeping the money aside meant it wasn't like I spent it on myself. The money is still sitting untouched. That doesn't make it okay, but it's not like I blew it on a vacation. Now, about the names and the tone of a lot of the replies. I came here thinking I'd get some honest feedback, maybe some tough love, and hopefully a few practical suggestions for fixing things with my son. I wasn't prepared for the level of personal attacks, being called a narcissist, abusive, and an unfit father, and having people say they hope my kid goes no contact forever. Here's where I think a lot of people on here are hypocritical. You all say you want parents to admit when they're wrong and take accountability. But the second one does. The pitchforks still come out. I owned up in the comments early on that I handled it badly. But people kept piling on like it was blood sport. You can tell me I screwed up without acting like I should be in jail, or that I'm some cartoon villain rubbing my hands together while ruining my kid's life. I'm not a perfect parent. I've made mistakes before. But I have always had my son's best interest at heart, even if my execution here was terrible. I've never hit him, never screamed abuse at him, and never belittled his achievements. I've been at every parent-teacher conference, every game, and every school play. I've helped him build that PC, driven him to conventions, and stood in line for hours so he could get those collectibles. I thought I knew his character well enough that if he did mess up, it would be because teenage brains make stupid choices sometimes, not because he's evil. That's why I saw this as a lesson opportunity. Obviously, I couldn't have been more wrong about the facts. Since posting, I've done a few things based on advice I did find helpful. I went to my son's grandparents' house in person and apologized. He didn't want to talk, but I left a letter I spent hours writing, not some generic sorry, but a breakdown of what I did wrong, why it was wrong, and that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. I transferred the $4,000 into a separate account in his name. He can access it whenever he chooses. I reached out to a collectibles community to see if I could track down any of the one-of-a-kind items. No luck so far, but I'm still trying. I told my sister I won't be speaking to her or Kyle for a long while. This doesn't fix anything for my son, but it's at least me making it clear that their actions have consequences too. What hurts the most is that none of this guarantees I'll get my kid back. And yeah, a lot of you were right, the stuff isn't what matters. It's the trust I burned. You can't buy that back. But what also hurts, and I'll be blunt, is being treated like I'm irredeemable because I made one catastrophic mistake. I came here for help, and yes, I got some. But I also got a tidal wave of insults and armchair psychoanalysis. You don't know my full history with my son. You don't know the years of good parenting I've put in. You're judging me based on the absolute worst moment I've had as a father. That's not me deflecting blame. I did the damage. But if your stance is that one screw up, no matter how bad, erases every other good thing a parent has done, then yeah, I think that's hypocritical. People change. People learn. I'm trying to. So where does that leave us? Honestly, I don't know. My ex has told me not to push. My son still won't talk to me, and I respect that boundary for now. I'm in therapy now, not because Reddit told me to, but because I need to understand why I defaulted to believing the worst about my own kid. I want to fix that, whether he ever forgives me or not. That's all I can say for now. You guys can keep calling me names if it makes you feel better. But I'm moving forward, actually doing the work to make this right, not just screaming into the void online. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.